Hello, my name is Scott Christopherson. I'm the lead mechanic here at the Hostel Shop. On today's maintenance tips, we're going to talk about sizing your chain and putting a new chain on your recumbent. When you'll notice on our recumbents, our chains are a lot longer than conventional bikes. So, how do you know what size chain you need? You walk into your local bike shop and say you need a chain, they're going to sell you a standard length chain, which is approximately 57 inches. Obviously, we're a little longer up here. So, what you can do to figure out how long you need is to start out by a couple different methods of doing this. One is to take your chain off, lay it on the ground, run your tape measure out, see how long it is, and then you'll be to know what the length you need is. If you, another method to do it is to go to your bike and measure it. What we're going to do is we're going to measure from the front, or from the back of the rear cog to the front of a large chain ring. And since our chains don't run straight, we're kind of going to angle it. Easiest way to do this is to start out from the idler, because that's the point where the chain's going to bend. Measure from your idler out. On this one, we're just short of 4 feet there. If we go to the back, we're a little over 2 feet here. Add that up, we're over 6 feet. Now that's only one way, so you'd have to double that. That would give you somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 feet. You have to remember that we're going to add some in for going around the front chain ring and around the rear cog. So 12 feet isn't even going to cut it. Probably going to go up somewhere in the neighborhood of 13 feet. That's a guesstimate on this, I don't know. At the Hostel Shop, we sell our chains in a couple different lengths. 11 foot 10 and 14 feet. Obviously for this bike here, I would suggest buying a 14-foot chain. Yes, you'll have extra, but you're never going to be exact anyway. So once you do that, you get your 14-foot chain now. You go to put on the bike. The easiest way to size the chain on the bike is to run your chain through the idler, through the derailleur, over the large chain ring up front, around, through all your chain tubes and everything, over the largest cog in back, through the derailleur, and then pull the chain tight. What you'll see here is a little tool we made that I call a chain hook. Simply can be made with, this one is made out of an old spoke, but it can be just as easily made out of a piece of wire hanger. Length doesn't really matter. It depends how much room you have to work with, how long you want to have it, how long you have the tab sticking down. It's your own creation. This is one that I use in our shop. It's one I set up for myself. What you'll do is hook the chain tool onto through the outer plates link onto a roller, and then hook it onto the other one. There. Now I don't have to sit there and hang onto the chain. If it does slip, or if it was to slip, it would be pulled back through the tubes. So with your hands, the chain's always slippery. What you're going to do to size this now is again, over the large chain ring, over the large cog, through the derailleurs, all set up just like it's ready to ride. But now we're going to take and pull this about as tight as you can get it. Now, if I was to try to ride like that, that's overly tight. That derailleur is really stretched out. So at this point, I'm going to take and add a link to it, or at least one to it. Then you're going to hold the chain up. And you're going to see that what we're going to want when we put our repair link in is we want a set of inner plates. Right here I have inner plates on this one. So we're going to want to punch a pin out. So instead of this one here, if I punch this pin out, I'm going to be a little short. So what I'm going to do is go over here and punch this one out. So take your chain tool, put your chain tool on there, turn it. The way a chain tool works is there's a pin here. As you rotate it, it's going to push the pin in the chain, the link pin, out. So we'll take the chain, set it in there, start turning. This one didn't do it, but the ends of these pins are riveted. So as you start to turn this, you may hear a snap. All you have to do is popping these little peened over rivets here on the chain pin, just popping off. It's not hurting anything. Push that, turn it till the chain tool stops. At this point, remove your chain tool, and the chain may fall off. If not, you may have to wiggle a little bit. Sometimes this pin will come all the way out, whatever. You can set that chain aside because that's the excess chain we're going to have. Now we're going to be linking these two sets of inner plates together. Most chain manufacturers these days use something SRAM calls theirs a quick link. Some call it a missing link. There's different names for it. If you're running a Shimano chain, you won't use one of these links. You actually use a replacement pin. So with a Shimano chain, you'd want to leave the end of the chain looking more like this, with this pin gone, so that you could put a new pin in through it. But using the quick link, because this is the SRAM chain, we're going to put half of it in here, come up with the other half on the other side, bring them together, and if you look really close here, you can see that there's a bigger hole here on the inside, and it gets thinner as it goes out. Also on this link, there's a ridge cut in, or a groove cut into it. So basically what happens is that groove fits into the outer, that slot in the chain link. Bring it up, put them together, and give them a pull, and they'll lock out. Sometimes they don't, especially 10-speed chains. They're really hard to do. What you do with a 10-speed chain is get it to this point, remove this. If it'll stay together, get it to the top side, or if you're running a 10-speed, do your work up here. So what you're going to do is you're going to hold the wheel, and then you have someone hold the crank at the other end and give it a snap back like that. So you're snapping the chain tight, and that'll lock that link out. Once you have this done, then we're going to check to make sure. If you're a little worried about getting your chain too short, then add an extra link in there. You can always take more links out as you go, but it's hard to add links back. It's more difficult to add links back into your chain. So if you wanted, leave your chain a link or two longer, and then you can start pedaling. What we're going to do is take and shift it. Now this is large, so that's the minimum amount of chain you need on the bike. If we add any less chain on this, when you went from the large ring up front to from this cog and start to shift up, when the chain is too short, it'll literally, you can rip the derailleur off the bike. It'll tear the derailleur up, it'll tear the hanger off, it'll bend your chain up. It gets real expensive. So make sure you have enough chain on. If you size your chain, you're pedaling like this, and as you shift up to the biggest cog and back, the bike stops, then you don't have enough chain on there. If you're doing this on the road with your legs are much stronger, that's when you rip the derailleur off. So you can pedal it up here, make sure everything fits. Then when you start shifting down, so we're in the smallest cog on the rear, we're taking shift to the smallest ring up front, and you can see we have some clearance in here. Now with recumbents, we've been known to move our, or play with our gear ranges, and we'll put smaller chain rings up front so you can climb better. Great, it works great. But what you may find out is that your derailleur, the rear derailleur, will not pick up that distance. It's something called chain wrap. You can Google chain wrap and get an explanation of it. What you need to, the most important thing is to have enough chain when you're in the big one up front and the large one in the rear. If you don't, you can rip it off. If you had too much chain back here, the worst case is when you start getting down to the smallest cogs, the derailleur will catch up, your chain may sag or something. But the only time you're doing that is when you're in the smallest cog. You're climbing a hill. As you're topping out the hill, you'd be in the largest cog back here. You'll start shifting down 2, 3, 4. Generally, I recommend by the time you get down, if you're going to run the small cog, by the time you're down number 4, it's time to start shifting to the middle ring up front, because you've probably balanced out the hill enough or leveled out enough so you can get some speed up. So that pretty much details how to size a chain for becomes the simplest way to do it. The way I'll do it in the shop every time I bring a bike in. If you have any questions, you can always call the Hostel Shop about it. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe, like it, share it with your friends, comment at the bottom of it so we know you're liking it. If there's any problems you have with it, let us know, and enjoy. That's all for today. Thank you. Okay.